Overcoming laziness in 7 easy steps. So my father was someone who was definitely a hard worker. Every so often he gives me stories about how he used to pick cotton for extra money, tobacco, cucumbers. Basically, he had to go work in the fields. Believe it or not, even after slavery, people were still working in the fields to make money. And that's what my father did as a kid, right? A kid, as a young adult, things like that. Now, when he got older, he went to the military, right? So he always had this kind of like do what I say or work really hard type of mentality. That's just who he is. And what he did was he actually translated that and given it to me, my siblings, and things like that. So as a result, we've become hard workers, right? And when you're a hard worker, one of your biggest fears is being lazy. And that's a fear for myself, but also it's a fear for a lot of my clients, which is why for some of them, they actually struggle with concepts like self-care. Self-care for them may sound like it's a bad thing, that you're being lazy, that there's an opportunity that you're missing out on by just resting. And that's totally not the case. And I will probably actually do another episode on that just because I feel like that's a great episode. But with that being said, what I want to talk to you guys today about is 7 simple steps that you can use to overcome laziness so that you can start to access those goals and that lifestyle that you've been dreaming of having. And before I go into point number 1, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Each and every day you wake up, you're able to make a decision of who you want to be despite what your mind tells you that you are, despite what other people tells you that you are, and despite what your past has told you that you are. And that is a decision that you have to know that you can make each and every day. And if you cannot let go of this judgment, you will always feel as though you're lazy, which will make you always do lazy things, right? So again, this first step, I want to make it real simple. Simply let go of this judgment of being lazy. One of the ways you can do that is simply notice that as a thought. Just simply be objective, non-judgmental, and just be curious about where that thought has come from. If that thought was a thing, what would it look like? If that thought could take on a certain type of shape, what would that shape look like? The reason why I ask you that question and the reason why I ask my clients that question is because I want to objectify this thought. I want to objectify laziness, because if I can't do that, if you cannot do that, you will take this on personally and believe that, again, you truly are lazy when that is not the case. So the first step, again, is letting go of this judgment of being lazy. Main point number 2 actually comes from a Latin phrase, and it's called memento mori. And what it stands for literally is remember that you have to die. Now, I know that's a little bit morbid. You guys may be saying, like, what does that have to do with laziness? It has everything to do with laziness. The one thing about death that is a benefit is that it reminds you that you do not have all day to make decisions. You do not have all day to access this lifestyle that you want. Wouldn't it be ashamed if you access the lifestyle that you want at age 89 versus age 39? Wouldn't that be let's say, a terrible thing? If you knew you could accomplish your goal in 2 years versus 20 years, wouldn't you take that path? This idea of remember you're going to die, so memento mori, it helps us to put everything into focus. It helps to keep us engaged, and it helps us to see what purpose we should be living, what are important things that we see within our life. A great example of this happened when I was calling my dad. So growing up, my family wasn't the warmest or the most emotional. We didn't say things like, I love you. Like, that just wasn't who we were. But when I came across this phrase, I started to think there will be a time where some of my family members, they won't be here physically. So thinking of that, it made me want to take advantage of every opportunity that I have, because when that time comes, I want to have memories that I can look back on. So as a result, almost every other day, I'm calling my dad. Almost every other day, I'm calling my siblings. And this was something that I've never done. And what's so great about this is actually I decided to take all of us on a vacation. And I'm someone who's a frugal guy. So to pay for everybody to go on a vacation is not like me. But this idea, memento mori, it actually motivated me. And it actually showed me what I deeply, deeply desire within my life. And now it's time for me to act on those things, because I also need to remember one day, I'll just leave it at that. So memento mori, that is step number 2. Step number 3, and it's a real simple one, but a lot of people overlook this. But step number 3 is you need to identify what actions you need to take in order to make progress. Remember, I said progress, not perfection. Because for a lot of people, the reason why they don't take that first step is because they believe that first step needs to be a perfect step. But let's actually look into what perfect is. Perfect should be more so as perfect as you can get it. So if on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say your level of perfect is a 7, let that be and move on to the next thing. Progress that you're going to be making. Progress, or I can say something like quantity. So the number of times you take at the bat, right? The number of swings that you take at the bat, the number of chances you give yourself, the more reps that you take in the gym, right? The practice, that is what leads you closer to perfection. And again, notice I said closer to perfection and not actually perfection. So guys, believe that progress is made by taking small, simple steps. Progress is you just moving just a little bit more than what you did yesterday. It doesn't have to be this big, drawn out process. No, progress is simple, but you have to believe that it's simple. And the way you can do that is simply by starting to identify what actions you need to take to then accomplish this goal. Because once you have those actions, you can then start to set deadlines. And what these deadlines can do is it actually raise the intensity, the anxiety, the pressure that you place on yourself to get these things done. And also the benefit of this is that you can actually look back and look to see if if you didn't reach your goal by a certain deadline, you can start to ask yourself, well, where did my time go? Where are the time wasters that are within my day? And sometimes this may come in the form of people, but also it may come in the form of things like, let's say, the cell phone, right? So again, point number 3, identify what steps you need to take, what actions you need to take in order to make progress. Step number 4 in overcoming laziness, and it's a real simple one. I want you guys to use this simple 2-step framework. So this 2-step framework requires you just to simply ask 2 simple questions when it comes to taking action. So the first question you would ask yourself is, what actions can I take within 24 hours to help me to accomplish this goal? What step can I take within 24 hours that's going to help me to accomplish this goal? So that's question number 1. Question number 2 to follow up with that is, out of all these steps, if I were to put these steps on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that it is incredibly easy for me to accomplish this goal, 1 being that it's incredibly hard, what actions are at least a 7? Okay. So these are going to be the 2 questions that you're going to ask yourself. What can I do within 24 hours, but also has a likelihood of me accomplishing them at least a 7 or higher? I'll give you guys an example with me when it comes to working out. So sometimes I do go to the gym and I'm able to go there for 90 minutes, which is the time that I tell myself I need to go. Then there's days where I don't make it. But on those days that I don't make it, what I do is I get in my room and I start to do push-ups. I do anywhere from maybe like 70 to maybe like 100 push-ups, and then I do some abs. This is something that I can always do within 24 hours. And I'll be honest, on a scale of 1 to 10, it is right at a 7. It's not the most easiest thing for me to do, but it allows me to continue to make progress, and it prevents me from being lazy and missing out on the day of working out. So again, ask yourself this simple 2-step question. It's a simple 2-step framework. What can you do within 24 hours in regards to this goal? But then also on a scale of 1 to 10, what actions are at least a 7 in terms of your easiness, in terms of the level of your ability to accomplish it? Okay, it needs to be at least a 7 or higher. Main point number 5, always eat your dinner before dessert. So around Christmas, my wife bought me an Xbox, and it was one of the newest Xboxes. And here's the thing, guys. I haven't had a gaming system in over 10 years. So it's been a long time since I played video games, and I used to love them. I used to play Call of Duty, 2K, Halo, like all the games that a lot of people play. And it was fun, but it came a time where I really had to focus on my studies. I also had to get a job, so I just didn't have time to play video games. But now that I have a system, I have to implement one rule so that I don't become lazy. And I actually practiced that rule last night, and I'll tell you what it is. So when I do my work, when I reach my goals, so for that day when I'm reaching my goals, I need to make sure that all my time and my focus is on the most important thing, which is doing podcasts, speaking to clients, or even working on my second business. So I do that during the day. When my wife and my son come home, I spend time with them. So that's typically from like 6 p.m. to maybe like 9:30 p.m. And then when 10 o'clock hits or when 9:30 hits, I give myself at least 30 minutes to an hour to play video games. And very rarely do I go over an hour because I don't really need that much time to play video games. And there's so much other things I can do, like sleeping, right? But here's the thing, guys. I can only play video games in the evenings. That is not something I can do in the middle of the day or early in the morning, especially during the weekday. Now, why do I have this rule in place? Because I want to reward myself for having a good day. And also, I want to prevent any burnout or stress that may come from doing all of this hard work. And again, this is something I talked about earlier in the podcast. Some people who are hard workers like myself or like you, we feel bad when we take time off. We feel bad when we practice self-care. But actually, self-care is the thing that keeps us working hard. So make sure that you're eating your dinner before dessert. So what that may look like for you is make sure that you do the hard stuff first before you start to do the more comfortable, easygoing stuff like watching Netflix, going out to dinner, playing video games, anything like that. One can even say scrolling through social media. Something that I do is I delete the apps. I don't delete my accounts, but I delete the apps on my phone, thus making it a little tougher to access these social media platforms. So make sure that you're prioritizing the hard stuff first and then set up some type of reward for yourself later in the day so that way you can feel motivated to get to that destination. Main point number 6, make sure that you set up an accountability system. Now, this is something that is simple, okay? Just because I use the word system, I don't want you to think that it's hard. So for me, I have 2 accountability systems, and I may go over this in the next point, if you will. So my first accountability system is having a coach. Everybody that's looking to be great has had a coach. Michael Jordan, with all the talent that he's had a coach. Denzel Washington, with all the talent that he has a coach. There's no one that you could think of that is just such a natural that they don't need to hone that craft. They have coaches, and you need a coach too. And that coach is not just there to give you strategies and tips, but they're there to hold you accountable as well. Because if you don't take action on the goal that you said you were going to take action on, that provides content for us to now talk about, such as what got in the way, what are the time wasters that are in your schedule, or maybe it's something with your mindset. Maybe you're procrastinating because you feel like you can't accomplish this goal. Whatever the case it may be, a coach will be able to shine a light on the areas that is showing you that you're lazy, that you're not accomplishing your goals. And if you don't see these points, if you're not able to identify them, you don't keep stumbling over them over and over and over again. So make sure that you have a coach. So that's number 1. The second one, you need to have a schedule. You need to have a schedule. I want to make sure I say that twice. Here's the thing. The schedule that I have and the schedule that you can create, it does not need to be something that is nailed down to the minute or even down to the half hour, right? It's up to you if you like to do that. But here's the thing. You do want to be flexible within your schedule. And one thing that I ask myself, that I tell my clients to ask themselves, that I'm going to also ask you to ask yourself, is that when you create a schedule, ask yourself the question, what is the one thing that I need to accomplish on that day to make it feel like a success? Because here's the thing, you may have 5 things written on that list and then an emergency pop up. If an emergency pops up, we need to be able to look at, well, if I can't do 4 of these things, what's the one thing that if I accomplish it, it keeps the ball rolling. It keeps the momentum going. That question right there will help you to prioritize what tasks you should be doing first. So again, eating your dinner first before dessert, before you get to everything else. So for me, what I do is I take all the actions that I typically take within my business and I plot them on certain days. And when I look on that day, it is a lot of mental clarity that I have because I'm not trying to figure out of the 20 or 30 things, what is it that I need to do? Like each day, there's something that I need to do. On Saturdays, like today, I do podcasts. So I'm not thinking about my clients. I'm not thinking about my other businesses. I'm not thinking about my emails, nothing. So therefore, I can put everything I have into this podcast. So just ask yourself, what systems can I come up with in order to avoid being lazy? I even give you a bonus one. I wasn't going to give this one, but I give you a bonus one. So you can actually Google the Pomodoro effect, okay? The Pomodoro effect. There's also apps on your phone. So if you go to your Google Play Store, the Apple Store, you'll be able to find this. And what this system does is it tells you that you should work for 20 to 25 minutes and then take a break for 5 minutes. And then you should work for, again, maybe 25 to 30 minutes and then take maybe a 5-minute break or 10-minute break. And what you do is you go from working to taking a break, working to taking a break. And what you start to do is increase the amount of time that you're working. As you do this, it will help you to be more effective with your time because you're setting time blocks, if you will, to actually focus in the work. You're not trying to overdo it by coming at the gate and aiming for 90 minutes. That may be tough to get into the flow. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're incorporating little breaks for us as we build that muscle, as we start to get into the flow of the work that we're trying to do. And then main point number 7, and before I give it, thank you for making it this far into the podcast episode, and make sure that you subscribe to it just simply as a thank you. So main point number 7 is to make sure that you forgive yourself for being lazy in the first place. So what I typically see is that when someone misses the gym, when someone doesn't hit all 5 of the actions that they said they were going to do on that day, when people are just simply not perfect, they typically beat themselves up. And it's from the beating themselves up, they actually start to lose momentum that they were already building from, let's say, the 4 things that they were able to complete out of the 5. As you're beating yourself up, what you're doing, you're slowing yourself down. You're now dealing with all these mental monsters, if you will. And what these monsters have the ability to do is to zap you of your energy, distract you, get you off your plan, so that now it's more easier for you to become lazy the next day. Because here's the thing, if I'm beating myself up today about the actions that I didn't take yesterday, guess what I'm not doing today? I'm not working. So what I want to do is forgive myself for anything that I didn't do yesterday and make sure that I prioritize it today. But if I'm focused on all the things that I weren't able to do, if all the negativity from my past, everything that is telling me that I couldn't make it, that I'm not good enough, if all those things are now in my way, it's almost like I got to go through this jungle that wasn't there before to actually get to the treasure chest, to actually get back to my path. And you do not have to do that. So what I want you to start to do is to forgive yourself. And a real simple way to do that is to speak to yourself the way that you would maybe speak to a friend. Speak to yourself the way that you would speak to your 5-year-old version of yourself. So if you were to stop and imagine your 5-year-old or even 4-year-old version of yourself, and if they were upset because they didn't finish all their goals or their homework, there's something that you would say to them to give them comfort. What you would do is you would buy into those exact words that you would give them. So let me summarize these 7 main points to help you to overcome your laziness. So the first point that I made is that letting go of your laziness is something that you should, scratch that, sorry. So let me summarize these 7 main points to help you to overcome your laziness. So the first one was a quote that I gave from Henry Ford that said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. What this was all about is letting go of the identity of being a lazy person. Do that and you would definitely be able to adopt the identity of a productive person, and that would be more helpful for you. The second point that I made comes from a Latin phrase, memento mori, which means remember that you will die. This helps you to put everything into perspective, and it's really stop being lazy because you know that the time is ticking, right? And you can use that to your advantage. That anxiety is actually good. Point number 3 that I made was identify what steps you need to take in order to make progress. And remember, I said the word progress and not perfection. You do not need to make a perfect first step in order to make progress. It's really from the reps in the gym, the practices, those are the things that's going to move you closer to perfection. And again, I said closer, not actual perfection. Point number 4 that I made was a simple 2-step formula. So again, ask yourself, what can you do within 24 hours in regards to this goal? But then also ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, what goals, what actions are at least a 7? And 10 represents it's really, really easy for me to accomplish. 1, it is incredibly hard for me to accomplish. Number 5, make sure you always eat your dinner before dessert. This is why I make sure I only play my Xbox at night. Point number 6, set up an accountability system. This could simply be you getting a coach, right? And I suggest that everyone should have a coach. And then number 7, forgive yourself for being lazy in the first place. So this is Coach Wells. I'm a licensed therapist, and thanks for checking out this podcast episode. And again, make sure you hit that subscribe button.